What's up everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is Bookmas Day 10 and I'm actually going to tell you how to create a DNF shelf on Goodreads so it doesn't affect your reading challenge for the year, and that way it's not on any of your other shelves, it's just in one place. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're actually going to go over to my computer screen so that way I can show you exactly how I set up a shelf on Goodreads. It's an exclusive shelf that I call it my DNF shelf, and you're able to name it whatever you want, and that way the books are only on that shelf and you don't have to worry about them being on your one to read or your to read or anything like that. And so let's go ahead and jump on over to the tutorial. Okay, I want to show you guys how to create a DNF shelf here on Goodreads. So we're in my Goodreads right now. I'm just on my little Goodreads homepage right here, but I want to show you what my shelf looks like and how it doesn't affect my reading challenge. So we're going to go into my bookshelves right here, and as you can see, I have the same ones that everyone else has: the read, currently reading, one to read, and then I have this DNF shelf. And so if we click into this DNF shelf, so these are the books that I ended up DNFing this year, and I'll talk about them in just a little bit, but let's finish this little tutorial here. And so in order to get these, see, they were in my want to read, and then I moved them to my DNF shelf, and as you can see, they're not going to be on any of my other shelves. They're literally just on my DNF shelf. And if we go back to my reading challenge, they're not in my reading challenge either. So this is my 2019 reading challenge, and the books that I DNF'd are not in this, so they did not count towards this when I put them on the DNF shelf. And so this is why I like having that exclusive DNF shelf that I created. So let's go and create a shelf for yourself. So you're going to click up here at the top, go to my books. That takes you to this little area here where we're going to edit our bookshelves. So you're going to click on edit. These are the ones that, like, the tags that I've actually created. So right here, they have all of these different check marks and stuff. This is what we need to learn about in order to make our DNF shelf. And so as you can see, read, currently reading, and to read are all exclusive shelves, and you can't even click on these to take them off of an exclusive shelf. This is exactly how Goodreads wants them to be. So in order to make your shelf be one of these exclusive shelves and not a tag, you have to click this exclusive checkmark button. So what I did is I created a shelf called DNF. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right here and let's just pretend, I don't know, let's do a DNF for 2020. So now we have a DNF 2020 right here. Now in order for that to be an exclusive shelf, we would have to click on this little checkmark button. This is going to pop up and it's going to say, if you have this as an exclusive shelf, that means a book can only be on one of those shelves. So you definitely want to say okay to that, because that's what makes it come off of these other shelves. So for instance, if you have a book you're currently reading, it's not on your to read shelf anymore, and it's not on your read shelf. And so that's how my DNF shelf works, is because of it being exclusive, it's only on the DNF shelf. It's not in my read, it's not in my currently reading, it's not in my to read. And so that's what makes it really important, is having that exclusive. So let's say I'm done. We have our DNF 2020 on here. And so now let's pretend I'm just gonna move a book over there. So let's go into my currently reading. And let's say that I'm going to DNF this Christmas Shopaholic, which I'm not. This is just for the video. So we're going to say that I'm going to put it on my DNF 2020, okay? So now it's on my DNF 2020. So we're going to refresh this. Now, if you can see, my 2019 reading challenge over here is the same. It's still at 108 books. It didn't go up. The book that I just put on my DNF shelf is not in my 2019 reading challenge. So if we want to go back to my books and let's go to DNF 2020, you can see that Christmas Shopaholic now is in my DNF 2020. It is not in my read books. It is not in my want to read. It's not in my currently reading. So yeah, that's how I move my books to an exclusive DNF shelf, so that way they do not go onto my reading challenge for the year. So I want to take this back off, so I'm going to put this back into currently reading. Okay, so now
that's back into currently reading. We're going to refresh that. So now I have no books in my DNF 2020. Now I'm going to go back to edit bookshelves, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. So I can just hit OK. And yes, we want to remove that. So now I just have my DNF right here, which is just the one that I'm using all the time. And so yeah, we want to hit I'm done. And that's all you need to know, honestly. So that's how I create a DNF exclusive shelf. So that way you don't have to delete the books that you don't read anymore or keep them on your want to read forever and ever. And the nice thing about doing this on the DNF shelf is you can still write a review. You could still do a star rating if you want. I don't give star ratings for my DNF books just because I feel like that's not fair to the book. But I do like to write a little comment or a review about why I DNF that book, just in case I forget and years down the road I decide that maybe I do want to pick that book back up. That's why I like having this DNF shelf. So I hope that you enjoyed this little tutorial here.
All right, so I hope that you were able to set up your own DNF shelf. Now I want to talk about some of the books that I actually DNF'd in 2019, and so I'm actually going to go look on that shelf on my phone, and we're going to talk about each one just for a little bit, just so I can tell you guys why I DNF'd it. Okay, so I have 10 books on this list, and I think that I put them all on this list, but there might have been a couple that I DNF'd throughout the year that maybe I had only read like 10 pages or so. I don't really think about those as being DNF books though. It's just that, you know, I might have picked them up and then just, I don't know, just knew the book wasn't for me right away. Most of all of these are books that I actually tried to read a significant amount of it, and I just knew that I wasn't going to like the story, or I wasn't in the mood for it at the time. Now, I'm pretty sure that most of these I also will not pick up in the future. There may be one or two that I would pick up in the future, just depending upon my time, whether I'm in the right mood, but most of these are just books that I just knew weren't for me. So we're gonna start out with Tell Me Everything by Cambria Brockman, and I think this is the first book that I DNF'd this year, and it was actually in July. So I had gone like the first 6 months of the year with reading every single book that I had picked up, and this was actually an ARC copy that I got at BookCon, and I thought I was really gonna like it because it's a thriller, or it was labeled as a thriller. This one, it follows, I think it's like 6 college students and like something that happens, but I ended up getting, I think, 100 pages into it when I was reading it at the beach, and I just could not continue it. I was super bored out of my mind. There were way too many characters like in this actual book, and so I just ended up not loving it. I just thought it was a waste of my time. The next book that I DNF'd was How Quickly She Disappears by Raymond Fleischman, I think, and this also was an ARC copy that I won, and I DNF'd this also, I think, back in July. I tried to read it for the Reading Rush readathon, and I think I ended up getting almost 100 pages in, and again, it just didn't feel like something that was for me. This is actually more of like a historical fiction thriller, and I think that's why I didn't like it, because I'm not a big like historical fiction fan, and so it just seemed very boring, very like old-timey historical fictionist, and so that's just one of the reasons why I just didn't like it, and I ended up not finishing it. The next book that I DNF'd was Atheists Who Kneel and Pray, and I believe I tried to read this during Romanceathon, and Gabby actually gifted me this book because it's one of her favorite books, but I just do not like Taryn Fisher's writing style in her like romance books. I love her writing in her thriller books. I've read both of her thriller novels, and I feel like they're really, really great ones, but her romance books I just do not like, and so this book was just very lyrical, very like poetic, very symbolic, I guess, and I just could not get into that. I think I read almost half of it, and I just ended up not finishing it. It was just a DNF. Okay, the next book on this list is Canny by Daniel O'Connor, and this book I actually got on NetGalley, and it's like an apocalyptic vampire story, I believe, and I ended up DNFing this one. I think I got like a quarter of the way through, but it just was not, it was like a big mess. Like the sentences didn't make sense. A lot of things were just like going on that were just, I don't know. It just was not a very well written book, and so I ended up DNFing that one. Okay, the next book I DNF'd was 13 by Steve Kavanaugh, and this was the first book that we were doing for the Thriller Talks After Dark live show here on my channel, and so that was really embarrassing that I couldn't even finish the book that was for the live show. But this is a legalistic thriller, and I do not like legalistic thrillers at all. So at the very beginning, I actually thought the first 100 pages was really, really great. I was very intrigued because part of the perspective comes from like the serial killer. And so it was really cool reading from like the serial killer's perspective. But then the rest of the book was like really boring, did not care about the characters. And so yeah, it just wasn't for me. I know a lot of people actually did like this book. So I think it was just really my taste. The next book that I read was When the Light Went Out by Bridget Morrissey. And this book I tried to read, I think for Contemporary-a-thon, and it is a YA thriller slash, I don't know, it's not really a thriller though. So like I started reading it, but YA books are just not for me. They just don't have enough depth to them. Their writing is usually way off for what I like. I just didn't connect with like the friends that were in this one. And so I think I like DNF'd it pretty early on, like about probably less than 50 pages actually. And I have no interest in actually like finishing reading it. So I ended up sending it to a friend recently. The next book that I DNF'd was The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. And I really wanted to read this one because I heard so many amazing things about it. And it was one of the monthly discussions in my online book club. And I started actually listening to the audiobook. And so I'm not exactly sure how far I got, but I was probably definitely a quarter of the way through the book when I decided to DNF it. I did not realize that this was a hate to love story, and I despise hate to love stories. So I ended up DNFing this one just because I don't like when male characters hate females for no reason or vice versa. I just don't know why people love that like animosity towards each other, because to me, it's not cool, it's not cute, and so that's one of the reasons why I DNF'd it. The next book that I DNF'd was actually a like Christian Bible study book. It's called Becoming the Woman God Wants Me to Be, a 90-day guide to living the Proverbs 31 life. And I actually did like this book. I just DNF'd it at the time because I didn't have enough time to finish the study. So this is actually one of the only books I think on this list that I would go back and finish reading. So I just put it on my DNF shelf right now because I didn't want it to be on my currently reading shelf for like half of the year. So that's why it's on this shelf. It's just a nice like side shelf to like, you know, put a book on when you're like, okay, I'll pick that up eventually. So I do actually want to pick this one up. I was enjoying the actual Bible study, so I'm hoping to finish it out. It is a pretty big book because it's a 90-day study, and I think I might have made it 30 days into it. I forget exactly how much, but I will pick this one back up. Okay, the next book is Woman Number 17, and this one I tried reading for a readathon recently. Oh, I think it was for the Buzzwordathon because there's numbers in the title. So I tried reading this for Buzzwordathon, and I just was really bored. Like I was just really bored. All of the characters seemed to be the same, and then I heard a lot of people saying about how, yeah, like they finished it, it stayed boring throughout the rest of the book. So I just ended up just not really caring. It wasn't like a huge priority on my list to begin with, so I had no feelings towards, like I just didn't feel like finishing it, so DNF'd it. I think at like 100 pages in too, so whatever. Okay, last but not least, and knock on wood, let's see, what is today? Today's like December 20th, I think, and so this is my last book that I've DNF'd for this year. Hopefully I don't have to DNF any more books for this year. So as of December 20th, this is the last book I've DNF'd, and it is Landon and Shay Part 1. And I was kind of surprised, I guess, that I DNF'd this book because I loved Eleanor and Grace so much. It's a 5-star read for me. It's so emotional. And this is like a companion to that novel, I guess, because like Landon and Shay are like the best friends of Eleanor and Gray. You don't have to like read Eleanor and Gray to know what's happening in Landon and Shay, or vice versa, but this first Part 1 was just like the YA part of it, and so they were teenagers at the time, and again, it's a hate to love, despise those, and I just didn't feel like emotionally attached to the characters, didn't really care about the story, and so I think I DNF'd it 60% through just because it wasn't a priority for me. Like I just didn't see what me finishing the book would like accomplish, so since I wasn't really enjoying it, you know, why waste my time? And that's just how I feel. I don't know. So those were all of the books that I DNF'd in 2019. So that was 10 books. And like I said, there are a couple books. Like I know I read I tried to read Into the Woods by Tana French. Is that who wrote it, I think? Anyway, I got like 10 pages in and I DNF'd that one. Like there's some little books that I DNF'd, like just being a couple pages in, but these are like the main DNF books of 2019. So I hope that you enjoyed learning how to make a DNF shelf on Goodreads. Let me know down in the comments if you are making a DNF shelf for 2020, because I'm really excited to see if you guys are going to do the same thing. And so yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys tomorrow in another video. Bye everyone.